Verse 8, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Throughout the entire Bible, when you're reading these long narratives, there are these sentences which are inserted into these narratives which act as pivots for that narrative. And this is one of them. And I can tell you that I will read this narrative and I'll come to this verse and I will actually sometimes break down into tears to think of the state of the world. And it says that Noah found grace in the sight of the Lord. It's like reading the book of Ruth. I was reading it just a couple of nights ago. And I was thinking, this is God's word. This is his word to mankind. And he took real people that really existed and he used their lives, their marriage, their deaths, and all of these things in the most beautiful, loving story that has ever been written in human history. And I was reading it and I was in tears as I was going to bed that night thinking about the wonderful grace of God and what he has done and how it points to Jesus Christ. Destruction here is promised and destruction is coming, but in the midst of it, God remembers his faithful children. And this is not just a story about the past, about the flood. It is relevant to us right here and right now. As the world is, and we can look around and tell, sliding into moral degradation and destruction is certainly coming. We don't need the Bible even to tell us this. We just know it. We just need to think it through. But we can still be assured of the promises of God. And we personally may not be spared during these times of trouble. In other words, when a calamity happens, a tsunami or an earthquake, we may die. But Jesus Christ is an ark in which we are secure even in the most violent storms that go on around us. This is one thing that I'm real peculiar about. The Bible never promises us freedom from disaster. It never promises us prosperity. And you know me, I am not one to preach a prosperity gospel. But we are promised that the Lord never forgets us. And he is abundantly faithful in keeping his promise. This veil of tears that we are walking through is exactly that. It is a veil that we have to pass through. And on the other side, whether we live or we die, are streets of gold and the light of glory. Albert Barnes says this, "Whither grace comes, there merit cannot be." Noah did not earn God's grace, and neither can we, but we can receive it in advance of the time that it's needed. When the whirlpool starts swirling around and pulling down, or when the winds really begin to blow and things start to topple over, or when the tide begins to rise, we who have received God's grace in advance will be safely delivered beyond what is an impassable calamity for the other people who would not heed the call of their master. And that brings